students are gone, but you are still here. And we know how you feel because you are done. But you have so much work to do to get ready for tomorrow. Good afternoon, podcast listeners everywhere. Welcome to After the Bell, a Stunt Brothers production. A podcast that gets inside the life of a teacher and provides a wellness guide for being prepared to take on this most challenging of professions. I'm Martin Stuvel.
And I'm Roy Hunt. And we share your pain, having taught a combined 70 years. The guarantee of this podcast is to make you laugh, make you think, and give you at least one little nugget that you can use in the classroom. So get out your marking, organize your supplies, or just pour yourself a coffee.
I want something stronger.
And listen, engage, and interact with After the Bell, a podcast for you, the hard-working, dedicated teacher who wants free lesson plans, free advice, and a free meal.
Okay, Roy, but I'm not paying for anything more than McDonald's. Well, Mr. Hunt, episode 17.
17.
Prime number.
Yes?
You like your prime numbers?
I do like my prime
So you must love episode 17.
Okay, I will.
Okay.
I guess when forced. Yes. And it must be a very happy time for you in the garden.
Yes, it is. Even though the weather's kind of up and down, we actually could do with some rain. It's been cloudy for a while, but it's still dry. Mm-hmm. And I always worry about the fires in the summer. So I hope a good week of rain. Good for the garden and good for the fires. Not such a bad thing. But I did find some new zucchini. You knew I would.
Yes.
You knew I would. I went to a plant sale. There's a local Lutette Farms. They have their own seedling sale, and it's just close to where I live. And a new zucchini. And I can't, for the life of me at this moment, think of the name of it. But it's a new one, growing well, putting it out when it gets warmer by June. But it's in my greenhouse right now. So I'm excited.
Well, at our house, we have some seeds.
Mm-hmm.
We have seeds that are growing inside, getting ready to be planted, I believe, I think maybe in a week or so. So they're
Once the soil
sprouting.
is about 20 degrees for something.
Yes, the temperature has to be right.
Yeah.
We've had in the window, and because we've had so much sunlight, they've really taken off. I've cut the grass. I think this is my third time now cutting the grass. And the thing that I love at this time of the year, it's the flowers that are blooming and the wildlife activity.
Yeah.
And right now, I am just amazed at crows.
Really?
I know last time we were at your in your kitchen when we did that episode.
Ringo came.
Ringo came.
Or maybe it was Zach. It was Zach, son of Ringo. Yes.
And I'm amazed at how crows.
Did you know that Zach played drums for The Who and got fired?
No, I didn't.
He did, but they rehired him. Anyway.
Okay.
Tell me about the crows.
Oh, the crows will go to a branch and they have to have tremendous strength in their beaks, and they'll just
my crows don't
grip
do this.
the branches,
Wow.
and then they'll tug and tug until they snap them off, and you see them flying away with at least, I don't know, 10, 12 centimeter long pieces of branch for a nest. And I am just completely amazed at how active they are this time
I think
of year.
I have lazy crows. I think they do the neighborhood. They come to me for my nuts. There's clearly someone gives them bread because I see them with a big chunk of bread that they go wash in the stream in my garden, and they make the rounds, and they come often back a second time around noon, and I go, come on, crows. There's some nice insects out there you can find. You can find some grubs. Get to work. Don't lose your wild instinct yet. Go break some branches even.
Go
right?
break some branches.
Yeah.
Right. Get a little bit of a workout in.
There you go.
Right? So I'm surprised to see about how up you are,
I am up.
how happy you are. A little bit of
am I usually a downer? Am I
sun
Debbie Downer?
in the face. Well, there's some weird political stuff going on in the world
I am
right
political.
now, and you are political.
My degree is political science. I certainly,
yeah.
I do follow the news
And
far too much.
I
right?
know that there's a lot of things that could bring someone who is political, kind of bring them down a bit or trouble them a bit. But your garden, I believe, is your savior.
It is. It is. It really, without a doubt. But don't you think we're all political?
Well, are we?
I think everyone. People often say, "Well, I'm not political," but they're part of the society and they make decisions and choices. So they're making a political decision. For example, if they're going to recycle, right? They've decided to recycle their things and put them into the individual bins. I mean, do you do that?
Well, I've had this conversation with my brother-in-law. And I remember at the dinner table explaining, he's from Ontario and, we're from BC. And I told him about how I recycle and how I have a container for paper and there's a container for the metal and plastic recyclables. I collect up all these soft wrap in a bag.
I do. My garage is filled
I have
with
the clippings from the lawn. And then we also put out our bag, not a bag, but it's a container of all the compostable materials. And sometimes I put out a container that will have all our glass that would be picked up.
So
then
your brother doesn't
he
do that?
looked at me. His eyes got quite big.
Okay.
And he shook his head and he said, I take my plastics and my paper and my clippings and my recyclables and I put them all in one bag and I put them out on the curb.
And if I talk to your brother, he probably, though, would say, I'm not political, but I think he is political. He's making a political decision, right? I call that being political.
Okay.
I think when people say, I'm not political, it often means, well, they don't belong to a political party. They don't go into the street and march. They don't write letters to the government. But people make decisions all the time. And I think this current trade battle that's been going on between Canada and America, and Americans listening, we know you love us, right? So this is about your president. And it has shown that people are going, they're going. I go to the supermarket and I see people scouring the labels, right?
Yeah, I see.
Right?
Well,
They're being political. They're going, I'm not buying American if I can help it, right?
Well, I'm amazed at the number of Buy Canadian or Made in Canada signs that are located above or below all the products that are in.
And I've read from all that
stores.
news that I read, and in fact, Canadian purchases from the U.S. in the month of March did go down, but it's been made up by purchases from other places around the world. So people are dramatically shifting their buying habits. So they're being political. Many of those people would say, I'm not political. Well, they are. And I think that's a good thing. They're making choices. Even your brother-in-law is being political. You make a choice, right? Wow. We got really serious here. Start off with the garden. You think I'd get all calm, but no, you get me onto politics.
I'm
on that soapbox.
Your blood is boiling.
I mean, I was talking to someone the other day, and I was out for dinner, and if you're listening, former teacher, she was talking about how, because we have a retirement coming up for someone, and we often write a song. And she said, there's this great AI program that can do it. You just put in all the stuff about the person, and it'll write the song. And I, in my way, got off my soapbox and said, I don't need any AI. I don't need it. Well, what's going to happen to the world then, right? AI is going to do all our jobs, and AI is going to make our movies, write our songs, create our art. What are we going to do? Just sit around and take heroin, right? That's
an extreme.
But if you don't have a creative outlet for yourself, right? If you don't have things to do that soothe your soul, then you find things to replace that.
Sort your recyclables.
Yeah, there you go. See?
That
is your heroin. But I think, listeners and Mr. Hunt, I think we've actually found our theme in a really roundabout way. And it's, as we said, it's that time of year where we're kind of trying to find our focus, and many people are in the class. But I think we've got a theme here. Do you want to hear it?
Yes, I'd like to hear it.
I think everyone is political.
Everyone is political.
Everyone is political. How that's going to work out for the episode, stay tuned.
Okay.
What's that sound?
What's that sound? Oh, there's the sound. That's the homework board sound. And so, are we giving people homework this time of year?
Well, we skipped the nugget.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we did. I just don't hear. I hear the homework board sound.
And
so
went right to the homework board.
Yeah.
And
why?
well,
no nugget this episode. We're being kind.
We're being kind. Trying to truncate things a little bit.
Yeah.
I know the nugget was kind of a soft start, like when you have a soft start at school, right? You kind of ease into things. But we're going right to the homework board.
Right to the homework board.
And so,
because we got a guest, right?
We have a guest.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a surprise because I was going to say homework, but no, we don't have homework. We're going on a field trip.
Yes. Okay.
And in our field trip, we're going to go to see
Clint Johnston, right? President of the BCTF. So our theme, everyone's political. I want to ask him this question because I know even teachers sometimes go, I just want to teach, right? And I get that. I want to stay focused on my class. I don't want to get involved in the politics of the job. And yes, sometimes that noise is overwhelming. I totally understand it. But if you totally remove yourself, what kind of class will you have to teach?
Yes. How many students would you have?
Right? What support will you have for designated students?
Will you be teaching and doing outdoor supervision?
Exactly. So here's a great opportunity to talk to Clint Johnston, president of the entire teachers union for all of British Columbia. He is finishing up his term, and we are going to actually the building, the BCTF, and have a real field trip. He's not coming to our studio. We're going
to him.
And we're going to talk to Clint Johnston. Thank you, Clint. We really appreciate you coming on after the bell. Roy and I are excited about this, and we always start off with an icebreaker.
Fantastic.
ABC 1, 2, 3, just to get going. Just whatever pops into your head, say it.
All right.
Don't overthink it. Okay.
Okay. So A, recess or lunch?
Lunch for sure.
Lunch. Okay. B, apple or banana?
100% banana.
Oh, okay. C, mojito or margarita?
Oh, mojito.
And did I remember right? You make your own cocktails?
I absolutely am a cocktail lover and a cocktail maker. Yeah, for sure.
What's your favorite cocktail to make?
Oh, well, that's tough. To make or to drink?
Or to let's hear both.
I think. So my favorite one to make probably is I really got into milk punches.
Okay.
Milk clarified punches. I don't know if you ever had
No,
one.
no.
It's what it sounds like. A lot of strong citrus in it, and then you make it up and you mix it in with milk.
Okay.
And the milk curdles, and it takes the color, any bitterness or astringency in that out, and you get a essentially clear cocktail.
Wow.
Yeah, they're wild. They're wild. So, and to drink, I don't know. I've had some amazing, gorgeous kind of one-offs, but probably just a straight up one of my favorites has got to be an old fashioned. I like a bourbon old fashioned.
Okay. Yeah. Classic.
Yeah.
Okay. 1, 2, 3. What was your favorite book as a child?
Oh, as a child, a huge science fiction fan, but also, I don't know. I mean, I read The Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings probably 3 or 4 times by the time I was a teenager.
Same.
But I think probably one of my favorites was Stranger in a Strange Land. A lot of twists and lot of issues that I realize now.
Well, I love
about
Robert
the writer
Heinlein,
in the
right?
book. But
I was so into him as a child.
Oh, 100%.
And then later on in life, you realize, was he a fascist?
Oh, There's some problematic things there, but Stranger in a Strange Land, and partly for the kind of the thought of an open, like more, thought of non-conventional ideas.
And science fiction was great for that, especially when you're young, to explore different worlds and what it could be and try out different thoughts.
I always tell my kids that really good science fiction isn't about the science; it's about the analysis of society and culture.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Okay, number 2, if you could listen to only one piece of music for the rest of your life, and you don't have to listen to it nonstop, but if you could have only one piece, what would that piece of music be?
Probably, you'll find out at some point in here, I'm sure, that I choke up quite easily. Probably Wonderful Tonight, because
Eric
it's
Clapton, yeah.
my wife and I's.
Okay,
Yeah.
Wow, yeah. Was it at an earlier stage of your life you had that song?
At our
or
wedding.
just a wedding. It was a wedding
our
song.
first dance wedding.
Wonderful.
First dance at our wedding, yeah.
Who was your favorite teacher when you grew up, when you were young? And why? Why were they your favorite teacher? Is there one you can think of? that stands
yeah,
out?
probably, I guess maybe it's tight, but probably, I guess, Mr. Fultz.
Okay.
And he was my grade 7 teacher at Yarrow Elementary. I played on the brain scramble team, and I had some educational issues as a child, and I think he was a really good person for me to have in grade 7 because I had some struggles both in and out of the class, and he just seemed very patient and very understanding, and probably one of my most memorable for sure.
And where was this?
This was Yarrow.
Okay.
I was born and grew up essentially in Yarrow, technically in Sardis, but in Yarrow really, and so Chilliwack, Yarrow Elementary.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna do a bonus one.
Okay,
All right.
Who's your favorite child?
Whichever one is closest and available to do jobs. How's that?
Yeah. Good answer. Okay. So just to get started, tell us about your pre-BCTF career as a teacher.
All right, so pre-BCTF career as a teacher is a bit weird and probably a little bit shorter than people might think. So I actually I worked in trades, I guess, essentially.
Okay.
My father's a pipeline welder, so I used to work on gas pipelines. I was a welder's helper, but in the winters, because in BC it doesn't freeze enough most places to work in the winter in pipelines, so I worked in a wood mill, a reman mill, and when I was 23, lost my hand in a planer accident.
Okay.
And so I had to retrain. So I was a little bit later the freshman because that wasn't the track I was on. But anyways, when I finally graduated, I already had 2 children. I went to uni and had 2 children and ran the intramurals program and worked while I went to uni with 2 kids and a full course load. And I went to England because I needed to work. I needed to work full time to make money. And that wasn't really possible at the time. I don't know if you remember, but at that time when I graduated, jobs were scarcer and you worked the TTOC list part time.
Yes, long time.
Yeah, I couldn't do that, right? So went to England for 5 years, 2003 to 2008. And taught over there and learned they have a horrific system, but we won't diverge into that. So 5 years there, came back to Chilliwack, got hired right away. I'm elementary. I had a PE is my initial degree, BHK. And so I did 4 years as a TTOC. The first year, I just kind of went all over and did everything. And then the next two of those next 3 years, I had a grade 2 assignment covering someone for mat leave, so pretty much the full year. And I forget what I did the other year. How bad is that? And then I got hired. My first full-time contract, actually, I got hired at Central Elementary, doing a 4-5 split class. And it was kind of funny because the principal who hired me had met me because our daughters danced together, and that I think was one of the reasons she was interested, hired me. Worked there for a year, and then I became the president of the Chilliwack Teachers Federation Association, Chilliwack Teachers Association, and she became the second in position at the HR for the district. So we went our 2 separate ways and still kept seeing each other all the time.
Wow.
So that's kind of my,
after your accident, how long was it before you kind of
got into teaching? I think. Let's see. I started my first year of teaching in England was 2003. So that would be. I go around 1994, so it was quite a while. It was 8 or 9 years.
I would imagine that was kind of a period of discovery.
It was a period of
you're forced to change direction so dramatically.
Right? And I mean it was because like I said, I love learning and I love that kind of stuff. But I had my relationship with formal schooling had not been the strongest. And so, it was a huge change, both personally and then also kind of figuring out what to do from there. I have a lot of sympathy for children when they go to uni because I was an adult and I went to uni and I was like, oh my goodness, what do I want to do? This is too much, right? Yeah. Did a year of engineering first. I started off, I'd always been interested in math and physics, and then found out what the jobs were most likely to be and was like, that's not for me, and I'd been coached growing up and enjoyed sports a lot, team sports, and had started coaching initially my nephews and then coached some children and really liked that. So I thought, teaching similar.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, spoiler alert. But so I kind of ended up wandering over into teaching.
And I think a lot of people, that's their first kind of opening to the idea of teaching is coaching and dealing with kids in that way.
Yeah. And it's not at all the same thing, but I was glad that the element that they have in common was the chance to have an impact on a kid's life and to build that relationship and to watch them grow. So that was the part they have in common, and that was enough. That was
and
good.
You obviously knew you like working with kids. With some people would coach and go, I can't do this for a career.
Well, and I don't know what the two of your experience was, but when I got to uni, it was shocking to me because when you do like I got a Bachelor of Human Kinetics, but the whole way through when you're doing physical education, you're talking about kids and you're engaging with kids and you're learning about them. Mm-hmm. And I got to my education year and I met people like they came from math backgrounds and they had never yet engaged with children. And I thought, oh my goodness, like of all the parts that are easiest or hardest to learn, that's the hardest.
Kind of the vital part.
Yeah,
right?
like why, how have you, and they were nervous about like, oh, I got to work with kids. And I'm like, that's your next 35 years, right? And so
I hadn't done a lot because I was straight, got my degree in political science, and at 22 did a degree in education, and I'd done some volunteering and teaching and thought I would love this, but I was young. I was full-time teaching by 24.
Yeah.
Well,
And I think a lot of people, they don't really know what it is. That's why I think the dropout rate in teaching, it's what part of it is, it's such a hard job, but some people, it's not meant for them.
I started out in geology. And I spent 2 years underground. And after 2 years underground, I realized I needed to meet people. But I've always been involved in, as a kid, I was always involved in like summer camps. And I was a counselor over the summers. But I volunteered before I went to teachers college just to make sure that I was on the right path. And I volunteered in a number of community centers. Yeah. And the joy that I had from that volunteer experience just solidified my passion to teach.
Well, and that's amazing. That's such a good idea because I genuinely think, it's the hardest part, but it's also, you can't fake it because the kids know right away. And you can be an amazing technical teacher, instructor, but if you can't relate and build relationships and the kids feel that, you're in for a tough time.
I said the other day on our podcast, kids have a great BS detector.
Huge.
They know a genuine person in front of them right away.
Yeah,
right?
And if you can't do that, you're in trouble, right?
Okay. So you shared a little bit about getting involved in the union.
Yeah.
Why?
I think my trajectory for union involvement is probably not that unusual. The way I did it was probably unusual, but like a lot of members, I've been brought up in a union family, by the way, because my dad's a pipeline welder. I mentioned that, and the UA 170 Plumbers and Pipe Fitters was my first union. So, like the union part of things, fully on board, fully engaged, union member. But I had questions. I had some gnawing questions about why things were being done. I was a bit critical of what was happening and didn't really understand it. Particularly in the year where there was a big bargaining, as there always is, right? And there was some job action, and there was things, and I didn't understand why I was seeing the decisions I was, or what was coming out, and kind of always taught growing up, you can either get involved and have an opinion, or keep your opinion to yourself. And so I got engaged a bit. Now that's where my story probably veers, because once I decided, well, I might try and get engaged and actually do some union work. The first thing I did was I ran from the floor for president in my local. That was the first union role I pursued. But it was out of a genuine, I don't understand why we're doing what we're doing, and I didn't agree with everything I saw. And again, spoiler alert, I've learned a lot and now understand how and why some of that was happening. But I think that's how a lot of our members get engaged. They don't understand why we're doing what we're doing, and they join us to find out what's going on.
Which is so much better than the alternative is just to complain, and then you don't say anything. You complain behind doors, and then you say, get involved. Oh, I don't want to. I'm not political, right?
I saw that one. We'll get there.
Yeah,
but,
right?
Well, and I think partly because I have no issue with people complaining. That's, as you both know, that's a good chunk of our job is what we hear. But if you're complaining in order to try and improve things and help things and make a change that's going to help members and stuff, sure. I can listen to that all day, but if you're really just complaining but don't want to be involved in any type of solution, that's hard.
Do you find it hard balancing your work life with your family life?
What is this work-life balance that you speak of?
5 kids.
I say that really quite tongue-in-cheek, but I think it's weird to be so fully aware of something and yet to have a hard time addressing it, right? Because no is the answer. I don't think I do a great job. I think I do a decent and acceptable job, as evidenced by my partner, my wife still being with me, and my kids still being around. But it is, no, I don't think we do. And I've even tried hard, both of you engaged in the local, I tried to put up boundaries, reasonable, respectful boundaries. I was fully aware that it wasn't a job that was 9 to 5. Like, I knew that, and I take that on, and but I also think that you have to set some boundaries. You can't be taking calls on Christmas Eve. If someone is imminently like in a dire physical situation or is going to get fired immediately, maybe. But I think you have to set those barriers. And I did that. But at the level I'm at now, I don't know how it's possible because there is too much to do.
And I found that I wanted to set boundaries as local president, but I'm not going to take emails at a certain time. I would be taking emails and things my wife could see. It would weigh on me. I mean, you're dealing with some pretty heavy things, and it got to me.
We were
really
talking. We were talking. Yeah, it does. We were talking this morning and about. I got a long drive ahead of me later today, and Holly was saying, "Oh, I'll send you these podcasts of President Obama and someone else." And I'm like, they sound really amazing and interesting, but I actually there's everything weighs on me, and what I look for now is some time to not make decisions, not think about heavy subjects, which sounds terrible, but really it is because it weighs on you. You take those calls. I think the key thing for me, just to answer your question more directly, I don't do a great job of balancing. I think I do an okay job. The main thing to me is you have to be brutally honest and a bit pessimistic with your partner about what this will look like. And I say be a bit pessimistic so that you can sometimes go, oh, wait, it wasn't quite as bad as we thought it was, right? Yeah. But if you're not honest with your partner and your children when they get to the right age about what's coming and what it might be like, I don't know how you would do it, because that's what's helped me.
Mm-hmm. So then how do you find calm in all of the things that are going on? What is what do you do that's going to center you?
I think it's cocktails. I mean, for me, it was I love the garden, right? And I found gardening was my calm, right? Yeah. So is there something that you have as your calm?
Oh, it's tough. I can't lie. A lot of times now, if I only have a couple hours when I get home, I want to watch a TV show that takes me away. I think, though, in terms of what we do as calm, we have a lovely place. Our actual home is on Main Island now. And it's rare, but when I can get there, that's beautiful. We garden, we do stuff. But I think it is cocktails in a sense. And I hope that doesn't sound too bad on a podcast, but it is the making of them. And the reason I actually ended up getting into cocktails, I actually love cooking. Our family is very centered around cooking and food. We've always cooked almost every meal and eaten most of them together. It was a thing that we both agreed on, Holly and I. And I love cooking. I love the creativity of it. I'm not an artist in any sense at all. But that was always calming and soothing and enjoying. But the time to do that got less and less. Yeah. But you can do a similar thing with cocktails. It's a creative aspect to it, a fun food aspect to it. You bring joy to other people. So it genuinely is probably cocktails now. And cooking when I can get a chance.
Yeah. Wow.
What do you do for calm, Roy?
I love the barbecue. I have a big barbecue.
Yeah.
I love to, find a barbecue recipe, something different with a brisket, get a smoker and smoke something and just those kinds of things. My family gets tired of all the meat.
Well, if you have extra meat, we got a lot of mouths that are happy to have some brisket anytime you got it. But I hear you. That's a great way to do it, and that's part of the food thing.
It's
also
that social part, right? That we've lost in so many things with our online world and everything, and our prepared food that we just put in the microwave.
Yep.
Cooking is a social thing. If you can do it that way, or making cocktails, and you play some music. There's something, you're interacting with people. It's that we're losing, that I think when we try to find the balance, that we don't have the balance anymore, right?
It's 100%, and I think that's why cooking, fully recognizing too, that's why I say it's become more cocktails probably, because there's a difference between cooking for joy when you have time and cooking 3 meals a day to feed a family.
Yes.
Like, yeah, I straight up know that. It is, your joy for cooking dies pretty quick when you're
Yes.
on the hook for 3 meals a day. But yeah, it's nice because the kids can be in there, sometimes helping, sometimes just hanging around.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it's nice.
And the flip side of finding the balance is we're talking about people finding the calm, but I think sometimes people need to find the political side.
Oh my
And
goodness.
so many people, you get involved in politics or union politics, and they say, well, I'm not political, right? You hear that all the time. And I like to say, well, you take out the recycling. Like, you've made a decision.
Yeah.
Like, they
Yeah.
go, what are you talking about? Well, you've made a decision. In life,
Yeah.
you constantly are deciding where you're participating in your democracy.
Yeah.
And if you're not doing something, I think you're being political. So what are your thoughts on that?
Just 100% agreement.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, there is no such thing as being apolitical. I think our kids, I'm sure whichever children you all have experienced the same thing. They've been exposed to a lot of politics, but it's mostly that sense. Like, I'm actually not big political really at all. I don't belong to parties. I don't get involved in that apparatus, except very mildly once in a while. But every single thing I do is political, right? We have signs in our houses about, acceptance of the queer community. We have taken our kids to events to, commemorate missing and murdered Indigenous women in that. Everything we do is political.
Yeah.
The fact that we pay taxes and explain to my children who now pay taxes why and where it goes and how that works.
Yeah.
No, I think people who say I'm not political are kidding themselves. And it's that, probably the key point is what you said. People who attempt to absent themselves from politics, you have made a political choice. You've chosen the status quo.
Yeah.
And you've accepted the status quo as a thing that can't be changed, or you've either accepted it as the best. And so, yeah, I don't buy that. There is no such thing as not political.
And don't you find there are usually people that actually have an opinion on things? Like, they're quick to complain.
No.
Right? Whether they're stuck in traffic or whatever it is, they'll complain, but then they'll say, I'm not political.
I've yet to meet a person who doesn't have an opinion.
Yeah, I
like,
know, yeah.
genuinely, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't understand, because when you say that, 100%. Why isn't the road in front of my house fixed? Why is my neighbor allowed to grow a 20-foot hedge? Like, people forget that politics isn't the big stage. It's not what you see on TV. And I think this links into the union they think of our union sometimes as the part I see on TV. I see our president babbling. I see a strike action.
Yeah,
And no, it starts very, very micro, right?
Yes.
It's like, why am I not allowed to have a dog
Yeah.
in my property?
Yeah.
Those are the things that affect us every day, right?
The things that-
local city politics.
I want chickens in my
100%.
backyard.
Yeah, 100%, right? And it's funny because that's a perfect one, because why can't I have chickens in my backyard? May seem like it's very sensible. They make a mess, they're loud and that. And then you examine, well, here's where I go quickly. So this is why I want my mind to go blank sometimes, because, yeah, that's valid. They are loud. I've had chickens. But also, how else do you really ensure that capitalism has a market to sell people food if you don't limit their ability to produce their own food? Like, and that's not very many steps to me, right? But
Yeah.
it is. It starts with that one.
Yeah.
So you are political. You've accepted
You
that
have.
we shouldn't be able to do that.
Yeah, it's still
Yeah, that's-
getting into the politics of the BCTF. What do you see as the core values, kind of the heart and soul of the BCTF?
Oh man, that's a tough one, because I think I got to say first, and some people might disagree, I think the core values are union values. Like, I really think when you look at overall what we spend our money and our internal workforce, I'm talking about the employees of the Federation now, and if you want to include like the locally released officers in that, I think the vast majority is still basic union values of ensuring that workers are protected in their work, both physically and job status wise. I think it's about making sure that our members, we do our best to get our members the best working conditions they have, the best salaries. Like, I do think that's actually the core of it. Now, that said, that core has a very thick layer, like I'd call it an apple almost rather than orange, because it's got a thick layer overlaid with a very clear understanding, and this links back to the last question, that serving our members literally in their classroom is one thing, but our members live in communities, and it is impossible to extricate those communities from our members, their work and their lives. And so I think we have a strong sense of social justice values that's pretty close to as core a value, because I don't think it's because, as some people think, there's certain groups that have led us and that's why I think it's because we have a fundamental understanding as educators of the impact community and the people living around you and the interwoven nature of communities has on us as individuals, and therefore you can't ignore. No. You can't ignore why
see
can't
that
I
every
have
day
chickens?
As a teacher, right?
You can't ignore that my neighbor puts a sign up that I think has homophobic words on it, and what do I do about that, and how do I engage, and can my union have a place in making sure that I don't have to put up with that in my community? So I think the core is still union, the core. But I think it's got a pretty thick layer of recognizing that you can't extricate those values from the rest of our lives.
Yeah. So then, how does the BCTF compare to other unions, especially in social justice issues?
I refer to the BCTF as painfully democratic. I think we compare pretty favorably. I think there's some. I think we compare pretty favorably because of what I said, because I think we balance out the need to do the fundamental jobs of a union, which is representation and of individual workers as well as the collective. But I think our willingness to engage in some of those bigger social issues that have as much or more of an impact on some of our members' lives puts us in a favorable light. And I think it's because one of the things that some members, I think, if you're not engaged with the union, don't understand is why we seem to engage in social justice activities that appear to only affect a small number of our members. Mm-hmm. And I think it's for me, maybe this was the answer to what's our fundamental thing, is we recognize that the strength of the collective is the ability to protect the smaller numbers. That is what the collective does. It protects the individual and the smaller group. So yes, we advocate for things that improve it for everyone, but I think we do a pretty good job of recognizing also that there are small groups within our membership, both in their workplace and in their personal lives, who need that additional layer of the rest of our solidarity and work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, it's hard, I guess, to got to find that balance with, there are some members that think the BCTF should just focus on wages and
100%.
And they don't want to hear the social justice part.
Yeah.
And I worry because I know in the States you've got, Trump and his cronies. Mm-hmm. I don't think you should dismiss the voters for them sometimes, and we have. So it's hard to find that balance of understanding where people come from without looking down upon them and saying, hey, come on, get with the program. Well, there's a reason they have been shaped with their views. And I think, how do we find that balance where they're our members, and they just come from a different place, and we respect that? Because if we don't, I worry we lose them, and then you're going to get that kind of movement here in Canada.
110%. 110%. I think you have to recognize, the fundamental thing I recognize very early on is that our members come from communities, and they essentially represent the diversity of those communities in everything, including opinion and perspective and voting and all of that. And I think if you don't, that's why I say we're painfully democratic. And it is a tension. We work hard to maintain it, but I understand there's a perception that sometimes it's not. But that's why we need to make sure that those spaces are available to everyone, and we have to hold space for those really difficult conversations. I hear things I don't want to hear quite often in this work. But, unless it's gone into hate speech or unless it's gone into harassment, or we need to have those conversations, because nothing turns an organization faster than people feeling like they're not listening to them. So it is a hard balance, but we have to maintain it because people have a right to engage and have their opinions, right?
I'm thinking that could be your new slogan: painfully democratic.
Painfully democratic. Painfully democratic.
We'll give you a good one.
I say I'll talk about it when we get to it later. But I say you go to one AGM and it very quickly becomes clear that we're democratic, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But I think in the bigger sense as well, because just to quickly link to what you asked about how we compare to other unions. And it's no slight on other unions. Every body comes up with a structure that works best for its membership. But I think we compare quite favorably there as well, where you look at the amount of knowledge our members have during bargaining, the amount of ability to give input to our major decisions. I think we do really well there. And I think that's also why we sometimes have so many issues. Because when you allow space and you have hard conversations, it's going to create some friction, and you have to deal with that friction. But we need to be willing to do that work so that we can have those hard conversations.
Encourage your convictions, kind of thing, right?
Yeah. And come out and be confident, because I'm one person. I can go and say anything I want to the media or to a politician, but if they don't think there's 50,000 people behind me, I'm just one person.
Yeah.
I'm nothing, right?
Yeah. So what are you most proud of as BCTF president?
I think I'm I was going to be flippant and say proud of not having run the ship into the ground. How's that?
That's step number one, right? So
It's funny because I have a difficult time with that. I'm a very honest person. I would also say, I don't have any ego. Nobody gets to a higher political position without some ego. So there's right there. I acknowledge that up front. Yeah. At the same time, I very much believe it's incredibly hard to take any kind of individual like happiness or joy or pride. I think my pride is that we have managed to stay relevant, and some of the stuff we've just been talking about, stay relevant, stay on the edge of conversations that are hard but are very necessary, that reflect broader social conversations. I'm flat out proud, I guess, of having been part of a team that got us what I think was a pretty good deal last time. Yeah, it was fortuitous. Also, don't kid yourself. Like, it was the right time, the right place. We made the right moves, I think, and we got what we could. So that's good. But a little bit proud of that. But mostly just proud of, I guess, also how we have, like I say, we've navigated and tried to stay in that space of having conversations we have to have, but that we could have shied away from. So I guess that's probably part of it. And I as an individual, I think I've maintained my goal of being a very inclusive in of the others, like of the vice president, the second vice, and that. I've tried to make sure that I really am I don't like the word leader, but I'm a president who has tried to include them every step of the way, so that there's the chance for them to be mentored in a sense of experiences, not me telling them how things work. And so I'm kind of proud personally that I maintain that throughout, because sometimes it is easier to just go, I'm just going to make my own decision and go on. So,
yeah. No. And the transition's going well, so that's a good sign that
that's good. Thanks.
The building's standing.
But it is. It's really hard. I mean, the baseline thing is it's really hard to kind of be proud or take credit, because there's 150 something people in this building, by the way, who who support me in ways that membership will never see.
No.
And so there's
Yeah. And now you mentioned the last contract. So how are things looking at the current contractual discussion?
without letting any cats out of the bag, I don't think it'll surprise anyone that it's early days at the table. Yeah. So there's people, we both put our things on the table, and I don't think it'll surprise anyone that both sides have some stuff that the other side isn't a fan of. I think there's an added complication right now because, as you know from even publicly, there's no what they would call the mandate yet.
Right.
What that really is PSEC hasn't given the monetary value of bargaining to the employers yet. So that's a bit of a complication, and
so much uncertainty too with the economy, right?
So much uncertainty, and that's what I was going to say. There's a clarity that there's a deficit. It's very uncertain is the best word. It's not that it's hard; it's uncertain economic times. But I think I retain a grain of optimism because I've watched who is the party that's forming government right now. I watched them through COVID make some what I thought were the right decisions and maintain deficit spending to do things that were good for British Columbians. Because I try to give credit where credit's due. They did that. I've seen them do that. So I know they can, and they should know they can. So I'm optimistic that even though things are difficult and unpredictable, that they should have learned the value of making the right investments even when it's hard. And so that's what we're going to lean on hard is when things are tough, you prioritize, and there shouldn't be much higher priority than education and health, right?
So what keeps you up at night when you think of the future of public education?
I think there's quite a few things that keep me up at night about the future of public education, but probably the most fundamental is the funding. And I know that sounds overly simplistic, but I've always prided myself on being fairly pragmatic. And if there's not enough funding in there, we can dance around the edges and you can shuffle all the pieces on the board you want. But if there's not enough of them, there's not enough of them. And having watched the trajectory of the decrease of education funding as a percentage of GDP, not the ideal measure, but a pretty good one to see kind of a metric of how government and the population values it. It's going down, and it's gone down. And so I see where that has led us. And unfortunately for me, it's kind of it's at odds also with what we've tried to do, which is to recognize the actual needs of children. You look at inclusion, and that's what inclusion was. Inclusion was people saying, you know what, actually, we realize that some of these students that we essentially have been giving up on, they just need a little bit more help is all that they need. And so we're going to bring them in and we're going to do that. And that recognition happened, but I don't think people were prepared for or anticipated or were willing to put in what it costs to do that
The cost of
up
it.
front.
Yeah.
Because to be clear, it's a cost savings. It is absolutely 100% a cost savings always. But that upfront investment has never really been properly made, and I think that's what you're seeing right now. So I worry that what's going to happen when that crux of not enough money to support those students properly meets with what that looks like in a system and people's value of the system. So
I think many teachers would agree with you. I think they completely support inclusion, but they just don't feel supported in the classroom to make it successful.
Yeah.
And they feel it's broken in many ways, and
Yeah.
they're dealing with situations that are almost impossible for
Yeah.
them to deal with in
Yeah.
some classrooms in this province, right?
I 100%. I hear about it every time I go to locals, and I think that's the problem, because also I'll use a quick analogy that I think always works really well, but we'll see. If you have a car and you don't put oil in it when you're supposed to, you can drive that car a long, long time. But the curve of how it deteriorates is exponential. When you start to hear something, you are already well on the way. And by the time you think, oh, there's a serious problem, you're done.
Yeah.
And I worry that that's what's been happening with education. Not to be hyperbolic or catastrophic, but that's what's happened is the people in it, us, teachers, EAs, principals even, they've seen what's coming. They know what's coming. They know how bad it is under the hood, the underfunding, the lack of resources, what it's doing to the people in the system.
Yeah.
The students who aren't getting the support they need and that we all want to give them but can't. But the public is only seeing a mild clatter, if you will.
Yeah. And the double-edged sword is that teachers make it work.
Yeah.
Right?
We prop it up.
They take
Yep.
that duct tape and they wrap
Yep.
it up and they make it work. They keep making
Yep.
it work because they love those kids and they want it to be successful. But that's kind of, they're not putting, the government or whoever you want to go back to is not putting the oil in the car. Right?
Yeah, and you can't, and you
Yeah,
can
yeah.
only keep it running for so long. And you're 100% right. I mean, we're losing more teachers earlier in their career, and having teachers at the end of their career stay longer is what is covering up right now how bad it is.
Yeah, yeah.
And that is not a sustainable model for anyone, you know. And so that's probably what keeps me up at night is, and knowing that that the outcome of that, like, to be clear, it worries me for our members who, like you say, I watch them burn out. I hear stories. I watch teachers cry an unfortunately high amount of times in this work. Alongside that, and just as important, is that what it means is that there's students who are not getting what they were promised and deserve from a system, right? And the connection point of those two is regret for me. That's always the thing I've tried to convey to politicians and anyone who listen, is that, like, it's hard to describe what it's like to live knowing that you could have helped a child if you just had the time or the resources, but you couldn't.
Yeah.
That is
It's devastating.
it's a tough feeling to live with, right?
Yeah.
So what will you miss most as the BCTF president?
That's actually a pretty easy one. One of the real concrete privileges is I get the opportunity to go around the province and see teachers in every part of this province, even outside the province. But, like, I go to locals, I talk to people. I was in Nanaimo last night, talking to members out there, hearing their questions. That's unquestionably the thing I'm going to miss the most, is the chance to go out, hear members' stories, meet them where they live, where they're at, and understand their stories better. So, yeah. Easy answer.
And what will you not miss?
What will I not miss?
That you can say.
I would say I'll not miss the time commitment, but the place I'm going is going to be the same. I think what I won't miss is, it is a political job. I'm always upfront with members about that. I know some of us don't like to identify as, I'm not a politician, and that's fair enough for each individual as they view it. But I get elected by people to a position and represent them.
Yeah.
It's pretty unarguably a politician to me. And that has a side you have to take on as well. You have to do some of that. You have to campaign. You have to get elected. You have to do some of the political stuff, which is not really the part of the job we all like. So I won't miss that. I've enjoyed the piece of having the privilege of representing and meeting members and all that. But I won't miss the politics of having to run every year and all of that.
Okay. So could you share with us your next chapter?
Yeah, sure. My next chapter is a move to Ottawa, where the BCTF is part of the Canadian Teachers Federation, the CTF FCE, the Fédération Canadienne des Enseignants et Enseignantes. And I was fortunate enough to be elected president of that. So starting in July, I'll be president of that for 2 years. Thank you very much. And so off to Ottawa. Similar work, but not identical. So kind of looking forward to it, yeah.
Well, we thank you for that, and we thank you for your service as president of the BCTF,
Yes.
and we really appreciate you coming on after the bell. Greatly appreciated.
It was an absolute pleasure to talk to both
It
of
was
you.
great meeting you, and congratulations and good luck.
Thank you very much.
Let's share a cocktail sometime.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I would love
make
that.
make your
Yes.
way out to Ottawa.
Okay.
And we're in.
Okay.
We're in. All right.
Well, we're back in the studio after that interview with Clint Johnston from the BCTF. I learned a lot, and he shared a lot, and that was a really enjoyable time.
And I'm hoping he does share a little more. I hope to follow up on
know what you're
that
thinking.
invitation for cocktails.
Yes. I think we should take him up on that and maybe have a field trip to Ottawa.
That would be great.
you know,
Ottawa seems to be a place where people like to drink.
Yeah, why? Yeah.
Well-
What do you know? What do you know about?
Well,
'Cause
politicians maybe try to negotiate with
Yeah, didn't
a few drinks.
I think didn't Johnny MacDonald fall down a couple of times in the House of Commons there?
It's quite
drunk
possible.
quite a bit. Yes, I
Yes.
think
Well-
it is part of that capital. You are right.
In 1864 in
Yeah.
Charlottetown, when they were trying to build a country,
Okay, when Canada became a country.
when
Yeah,
Canada became a country,
Yeah.
the politicians drank up to $200,000 in today's dollars in champagne,
John A. drank most of that.
and they were able to get Canada formed. So imagine
So that was like part of I'm trying to picture this. So they're sitting there in Charlottetown. They're getting down to the core of creating the country of Canada, and they just have this champagne flowing.
And
Like,
they
that
say,
was-
wait, my glass is empty. I can't make a decision.
Yeah.
I won't vote until it's filled up.
PEI says, no way, not yet. No, I
Not
need
yet.
more. I
I
need
need-
more champagne.
More bottles.
So that was part of the discussion to have that going on.
Yes. So imagine what
Maybe there's something to that.
what could be happen if negotiations aren't going well, and Clint pulls out a blender and his mixology book, and he said, "Hey, let's take a break.
Take a break.
Let's take a break," and
Yeah.
makes everyone a cocktail and put on a little music. And
Could be the best contract ever.
ever. Well, if anything, it certainly would get a lot more people volunteering to be on the bargaining teams.
Wow. If I was
So you could have a cocktail and bargain.
I think if I was a BCTF member, I might bring in that up at the next
Yes.
AGM. But good on you, Clinton. That was a really, really good discussion. And I think I'm going to have a cocktail.
Good idea.
This podcast is organic, taking shape with each episode. Building resiliency for teachers everywhere.
That sounds great.
And our website is stuntbrothers.ca.
That's stuntbrothers.ca.
We will chat again.
After the bell.